Weapons of mass destruction are a constant global threat due to their global impact and overall widespread devastation. WMDs consist of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. What does the world do if push comes to shove and WMDs are engaged? Where does the world end if the world's largest weapons are utilized? And is disarming the world really the answer? The origin of the term WMD starts in 1925 after the Geneva Convention prohibited the use in war of asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases, and of bacteriological methods of warfare. Although the stockpiling said weapons wasn't banned until 1972, the term was first used to describe the destruction caused by the German Luftwaffe bombs. The damage caused by WMDs has progressively gotten more evident as time progressed, and with it the fear of what could happen if they had fallen in the wrong hands. In the early 90s to the first half of the 2000s, the terrorist nations, isolated states, had little in the way of accumulating and manufacturing these large-scale weapons, chemical weapons, and biological agents. This changed in 2004 when Al-Qaeda launched an arms trading racket, resulting in the proliferation of WMDs by North Korea and Iran, with the epicenter being Pakistan. With a greater ability for terrorist states to become nuclear armed so as to risk, as Resolution 1540 has been created so that the world has some level of control over who has nuclear capabilities, the UN Security Council is the force that monitors the development of risks in the form of WMD proliferation with more and more threats. What would actually happen if one of these WMDs was used? The nuclear armed states of the United States, Russia, and the United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, the Democratic Peoples of the Republic of Korea, North Korea, and Israel. If one of these states were to unleash their most devastating weapons, what would be the effect on the world and its populace? Russia's invasion of Ukraine has brought the threat of nuclear warfare to the forefront. But how would modern nuclear detonations impact the world today? In a simulation by LSU, Louisiana State University, there was mass devastation caused by the use of nuclear arms. The world would be plunged into a new ice age. The skies would be filled with ash, blocking out the sun, which causes the ice age. Where the seas and oceans would freeze, causing ports and maritime vessels to cease movement. With the world in utter chaos and darkness, cold and famine engulfing the world, little hope remains for the world's populace if WMDs are utilized. Nuclear deterrences are stashes of WMDs held by the native nations, in which they say if things go too far and nukes are utilized, they will utilize their own nukes in defense. This deterrent is in fact the deterrent in this is the fact that the threat of counter-nuking would prevent the first strike by another nation. The question remains, is deterrence good enough to prevent a nuke from being used? After all, we know what happens if they are used. In 1953, shortly after taking office, Dwight Eisenhower secretly threatened to use nuclear weapons against North Korea to force negotiations. The fear nuclear weapons inspired brought the North Koreans to the table, showing the useful aspect of WMDs. That being said, are WMDs a naturally bad thing? Can a nuclear deterrent win a war? When do they become more of a liability than a weapon? If nations that are naturally aggressive can be brought to peace, then the continued arming of the world to have larger and greater WMDs capable of larger amounts of destruction is still a viable option. With our current ability to maintain peace through agreements, treaties, and strong vigilance, we are making sure these weapons are used by only the most capable countries. The world is certainly more than certainly going to progress into more and greater weaponry. It would be stupid to try and convince these nations to disarm, especially when foreign threats continue to endanger all countries. Conclusion. In my humble opinion, I believe that the nuclear weaponry and other WMDs is a large and credible threat, are entirely necessary as a threat of equal or greater magnitude could only be met with such force, and to argue against would be met with hostility, as not all would agree, and the world would continue on their own accord with the continuing development of these weapons. The world puts itself in a self-imposed check, where because of their existence they cannot be gotten rid of due to the fact if one country remained nuclear armed, there would be too great of an advantage, whereas constant monitoring of each country's WMD stockpile and proper negotiations to maintain peace are the best countermeasures we have available.